I find it really weird how some people can predict and some people can't, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And one thing I noticed is that I've mentioned this before that women have this window of expectation, like this gap in time where they expect something to happen. You come home and what does your woman expect? A kiss and a hug, maybe. Okay, so if you don't do that within like the first, you know, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, they're gonna assume that it's not gonna happen, right? So that's the window of expectation. It's part of the predictive process, and where this has happened any other normal day. So if it doesn't happen, then your expectations go well. What's going to happen now? Because we're mostly based on patterns. There's a lot of people that'll watch the same movie and over and over and over again, and they'll think the same thing is just hilarious. I mean, they will die laughing every time, and that's because partially, I believe, because their pattern library is not as extensive as somebody else's. Basically, hmm, how do I explain this? So basically, some people are that expect this. You know, um, they're they're wanting to see things beyond that. They don't want the same redundant. The they want something different, right? But they don't know what. And that's the thing about us is that we'll go out and try something new and not like the result, but we can't always predict the result, right? But sometimes we can. And I believe women are the most capable of that. They just don't even realize it. And because of their suppression, their ability to sense patterns outside of their own reality is a little too extensive. It's a little too far reaching. Mainly because I believe that they always have to be aware of their surroundings. I mean, they're hit on by cops, they're hit on by coworkers, they're hit on by their best friend's husband. So these women, their pattern library is huge when it comes to men, which is why it's so easy for them to pinpoint men and say, well, you're all pigs. Well, that's because your library for predictive processing is mostly men are pigs, because that is what you focus on. That is what you try to steer away from. It's what that disgusts you, and disgust becomes a priority in the brain in that uh, time and situation, because it sticks inside your head. Now, some people are able to just pass it off and move on, and that didn't even phase me. And then there's people that their patterns switch up and down. It's like, well, at one point you'll be able to handle it and pass it off like it's nothing, and then another day it's the biggest deal ever, right? And the other people are looking at you like, well, I expected this, but I got this. They're trying to connect the dots, like, how do I know which reaction I'm going to get? And now women I believe, are the most notorious for this, is because, men have always tried to keep that alpha dog role of the pack, but that doesn't always happen. Some women, are kind of like that fish at the bottom of the sea, waiting for the other fish to come, and their husband's the sand. Well, yeah, I'm gonna cover you. I'm gonna use you to cover up my tactic. So when I see another fish coming by, all they're gonna see is you, and then I'm gonna jump out. Who would expect that if they don't know you, right? But women, because they have the advantage of knowing what's going to happen because you don't know them. You know what I'm saying? This particular woman that's hiding herself in the sand, kind of like, them crabs that reach out and grab the fish. So when that happens, they're planning this. They're predicting what's going to happen. And the person that is on the other end of it, well, how are they going to predict? Because they don't know this person, right? So the woman hiding behind the man has the advantage. So they pretend to be this sweet, innocent woman. Well, then what happens is, as soon as they're no longer hiding behind their man, their patterns change. Everything changes. So when people have multiple patterns, it's hard to know which pattern is going to end up showing up, which pattern you want, especially with women. They'll be hit on by a certain guy, and well, no, I want nothing to do with you. And they'll go around everything, but they won't say anything about looks because everybody else in the room feels like shit about their looks. They'll watch what they say because they don't want other people around taking offense to it. Now, how many of us do that? How many of us do that? We go into a place and it's like, okay, we got all our friends here. We got some people we don't know, but it's like, I'm going to watch calling you Four Eyes because there's like 10 other people that have glasses and they're going to take offense to that, right? Well, it's not that I care that I take offense. It's that, I'm trying to control the temperature in the room because I'm a chameleon. I don't want to make more problems for myself than what I can predict. You get what I'm saying? See, I have this simulation in my head where I see a lot of stuff that isn't even around me. And so I constantly have to read the room to make sure nobody's going to get in the way of what I'm thinking, because then that's going to frustrate the hell out of me. So this is actually, I believe, a woman's ability, because most men are, they think they're just the alpha, even if their, arms are 2 inches thick, and they're from their back to their stomach is like 4 inches, and they're thinking they're king shit, they're King Kong. Why? Because they've been given this paradigm that they're the head of the pack because there is no other head, right? But then once another head comes in, it's like that person feels like they're in competition just being in the same room. So they're thinking, well, they might be predicting certain things happening because it always has, when other alphas come into the room. But then the pretending alpha, well, guess what? Light shone on the darkness, and then there's nothing there, So, but women, that window of expectation, I'm telling you, that is huge. The fact that they can be so startled, even 10 seconds after they stop thinking this certain thing's going to happen. You do it 10 seconds later and they're ready to jump through the window, and it's like, if I would have done that 10 seconds ago, you would have just acted completely normal, like, no, knew you were going to do that. But then 10 seconds later, you do it, and they're like, what? I didn't know you were going to do that. Well, if I would have done it 10 seconds ago, you would have known I was going to do it. So how would you not expect me to be waiting for you to drop your guard? Yeah, so basically, what I'm saying is, this window of expectation is everything, including the difference between most men and women. Now, women, it makes sense because women are, usually in a traditional sense, if we're going by traditional sense, the cultural sense of the 50s and, around that time, then the explanation would be that the woman is hiding behind the guy. The guy is not meant to be a predictor. You know, he's meant to be the warrior. So the warrior does not predict, because you're trying to predict where your foe's sword is going to go. Where's he going to aim the gun at? You know, whatever it is, whatever metaphorical weapon you want to talk about, your guard is not going to be 100% if you're trying to predict every move they're going to make. You have to watch your feet, you have to watch your hands, you know, the twist of the wrist, and you have to be on the ball. You know, now the person that is not fighting sword to sword, you know, the person behind the warrior, well, they're going to be the ones to notice when those exploitations appear. You know, the window where you can change everything. You know why? Because you're the magician that isn't seen. You know, there's one magician on the stage and another magician somewhere that, you know, together they're working together to create this illusion. So you see the one on stage, but the one that's off stage is the one that's actually has a lot more free reign and able to predict, and, you know. So yeah, window of expectation.